Well, Grant Boxleitner is in Studio B right now with a guest to help break down some of the highlights from Governor Rick Scott's final State of the State address. Grant?
Nicole, thank you very much. I'm joined by Frank Alcock, the political science professor at New College. Frank, Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us.
Happy New Year, Grant. Happy to be here.
Yes, in 2018, a big political year, and it started today up in Tallahassee with Governor Scott and his final State of the State address. Now, you got a chance to look at some of it, but before we get started, I want to play a little bit of his comments on the front side, and then we'll talk about it on the back. We'll listen to some of Governor Scott now.
I am thankful that in 2010, with the amazing support of my family, the people of Florida gave me the unbelievable opportunity to try to turn the state of Florida around. Working together, we've created an environment where our private sector has added nearly 1.5 million jobs. Together, we've worked hard to cut taxes over 80 times, which has saved Florida families more than $7.5 billion. I want 2018 to be the year that Florida voters pass a constitutional amendment that makes it harder for politicians to raise taxes.
Okay, that was Governor Scott. We know he's a fiscal conservative. We know he's the jobs governor, but what are your thoughts as he makes his final speech trying to move forward in the legislative session?
It was a close for him, and he wanted to frame his term here by returning to, I think, his big points when he came into office. And so touted the job creation, and those are some good numbers. We were in the trough of a recession at the time, so there's a natural bounce back, but there's still, there's good job numbers. Cutting taxes. I think it's substantively important to him and symbolically important to him. So he's at every turn going to highlight anything that he can on tax reduction. And deregulation, that's a big part of his philosophy, and so it was a part of his speech today. And then he did some other things, I think, to try to cover areas where the polls reflect some positiveness for him on his response to the hurricane.
He did talk a lot about Hurricane Irma, even the response to Puerto Rico, and that is going to be an interesting voting block. But as far as the governor, his next political move, a lot of people are talking about that, this potential Senate race.
Yes. I think he's going to be running for the Senate against Bill Nelson. I think we all know that.
We know that this was much different tone than last year, where he was in kind of some spats with the Speaker and even the Senate leader up there with regards to Enterprise Florida and the tourism dollars. This year you're seeing much different because I believe Mr. Corcoran has some political aspirations too, perhaps.
Perhaps. He hasn't officially announced, but you have Corcoran, you have Putnam as an announced candidate for governor. That's interesting. And perhaps DeSantis, who's got the Trump nod. It doesn't pay for him to get into a spat this year, and that's why I think he'll work hard to try to work with Corcoran.
All right, Frank, let's listen to a little bit more of what the governor had to say earlier that we carried live here on SNN, and then we'll talk on the backside.
This year, I want to reduce those fees back to pre-2009 levels by cutting the fee for the renewal of a regular driver's license by more than 58%, from $48 to $20. The proposal extends the current one-week sales tax holiday to 3 weeks over a 3-month period to ensure people have ample time to get the goods they need before the start of next hurricane season. Last month, I signed an executive order that outlines the process for sexual harassment training, reporting, investigating, and recovery for victims at all of my agencies. I urge both chambers and all of the cabinet agencies to follow our lead and do the same.
So you heard the governor there talking about these pocketbook issues that are always popular, it would seem. No one wants to spend more money if they can save money. So he hit both of those, as well as talking about this Me Too movement. Right, yeah. Anything that he can, when it comes to taxes, he talks about cutting.
Yeah, and the Me Too movement, I think, highlighting sexual harassment, it has been in the news, and so he wants to position himself as, he's addressing it.
You made an interesting comment to me right before we came on air regarding what he didn't say, and it was about a particular person in office.
The President of the United States was not referenced a single time. And I know that they are good friends, but one of the calculations that Governor Scott has to make is how does he position himself relative to the president? He is not going to have a primary, so he doesn't have to worry about running right to secure a nomination in the Republican Party. I don't know if he's decided that yet. I think he's going to have a hard time distancing himself if he wants to go in that direction. But as of today, it was interesting that in his final speech, he did not mention President Trump one time.
Very interesting indeed. Frank, we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us for this analysis on the governor's final State of the State address.